If you walk into any soul food restaurant in America right now and order baked macaroni and cheese, you are going to pay somewhere between $12 and $18 for a side dish. A side dish, not the main course. The side. And the menu will probably call it Southern mac and cheese, or home style, or classic. What it will not call it is what it actually is. A dish that was brought to America by an enslaved black man named James Hemings, perfected by generations of black women, and credited to Thomas Jefferson, who loved to serve it but never once stood at the stove. This is not the usual food countdown video. This is the real story of how baked mac and cheese became the most beloved side dish in American cooking, and how the woman at the stove got left out of the story. The story starts in 1784. Thomas Jefferson was the American ambassador to France, and he brought an enslaved man named James Hemings with him to Paris. Hemings was not a servant in the traditional sense. Jefferson sent him to train under professional French chefs because Jefferson loved French food and needed someone to prepare it. Hemings spent 3 years learning French culinary technique at Jefferson's expense while remaining Jefferson's legal property. The sauces, the pastry, the art of the French kitchen at a level that most American cooks of the era could not touch. Among the techniques he mastered was the French method of combining cooked pasta with a bechamel cheese sauce. When Jefferson brought Hemings back to Virginia, Hemings began preparing macaroni and cheese at Monticello. Jefferson served it at a state dinner in 1789, and the dish entered the American historical record. History credits Jefferson with introducing macaroni and cheese to America, but Jefferson did not make it. He ate it. James Hemings made it. The difference between eating a dish and inventing a dish is the difference between sitting at a table and standing at a stove. But here is where the story takes the turn that nobody talks about. The French version of macaroni and cheese was a stovetop dish. Pasta in a cream sauce with cheese stirred through it. It was elegant and light, and it sat on the plate like something from a Parisian dining room. That is not what you grew up eating. What you grew up eating was something entirely different. A heavy, dense, golden-crusted casserole that came out of the oven bubbling and took 20 minutes to cool down before you could eat it without burning the roof of your mouth. That version, the baked version, did not come from France. It came from black women in the American South who took the French technique and transformed it into something the original would not recognize. The transformation happened in plantation kitchens and later in the homes of free black women across the South. The French version used bechamel, a delicate white sauce made from butter, flour, and milk. Black women looked at that sauce and saw a foundation, not a finished product. They added eggs, which gave the casserole structure and made it set firm when baked, instead of staying loose and saucy. Sharp cheddar replaced the mild French cheeses because it was cheaper and had more flavor. Evaporated milk went in because fresh milk spoiled fast in a southern kitchen without reliable refrigeration, and evaporated milk gave the dish a richness that regular milk could not. Some added a pinch of mustard powder that cut through the heaviness of the cheese. Some added a dash of paprika on top for color. The variations were endless, but the architecture was the same. Pasta, cheese, eggs, evaporated milk baked until the top formed a golden crust and the inside stayed creamy. That architectural shift from stovetop sauce to baked casserole was the innovation. It was not a small change. It was a complete reinvention of the dish. The French version was a side meant to be eaten quickly before the sauce cooled and thickened. The black version was designed to sit on a table for an hour and still taste perfect, to be made in a large pan that fed 12 people from a single batch, to be reheated the next day and taste even better than the first night. Every one of those design decisions was made by black women solving practical problems in their own kitchens. How to make it stretch, how to make it last, how to make it feed everyone who walked through that door. By the early 20th century, Baked macaroni and cheese had become the centerpiece of every black gathering in America. Sunday dinner, church potluck, family reunion, funeral repast, holiday table. It was the one dish that was never optional. A Thanksgiving table without mac and cheese was incomplete. A church dinner without mac and cheese was an insult. A family reunion where two aunties both brought mac and cheese was a crisis because the silent comparison was inevitable, and the loser would hear about it for years. The recipes were never written down. A grandmother did not measure her cheese but grated it until it looked right. The eggs were not counted but cracked until the mixture felt right. No timer was set. The top was washed until it turned the color she wanted, and then she pulled it. The entire dish was cooked by feel, and the feel was calibrated by decades of repetition. A young woman who wanted to learn her grandmother's mac and cheese did not ask for the recipe. She stood in the kitchen and watched. Watched how much cheese went in, how the eggs were beaten, how the milk was poured. And even then, the first 5 or 6 batches were wrong because the knowledge was in the hands, not in the measurements. Then in 1937, a company called Kraft introduced a boxed macaroni and cheese product that cost 19 cents. Powdered cheese in a packet, mixed with boiled noodles and milk. It took 7 minutes. It fed 4 people, and it tasted like absolutely nothing compared to what was coming out of black kitchens across America. But it was fast, and it was cheap, and it arrived during the Depression when speed and cost mattered more than flavor. By the 1950s, Kraft macaroni and cheese was a staple in American households. The blue box became the default, and the baked casserole became a special occasion dish instead of a weekly one. Something got lost in the translation. A dish that black women had perfected over 150 years was reduced to powder in a packet. The real ingredients were replaced with chemicals. The technique was replaced with boiling water. The crust disappeared entirely. The box was not an improvement. It was a shortcut, and the shortcut cost the dish everything that made it worth eating in the first place. Today, baked macaroni and cheese exists in 2 worlds. In the mainstream, it is called a Southern classic or a comfort food staple. Food magazines photograph it. Celebrity chefs put their spin on it. Restaurants charge $15 for a ramekin. James Hemings is rarely mentioned. The grandmothers who spent 50 years perfecting the recipe without ever writing it down are not mentioned at all. The dish is presented as though it simply belongs to the South, the way magnolia trees belong to the South, without any particular person behind it. In black kitchens, it is something else entirely. It is the dish that tells you whether a woman can cook. Not fried chicken, not greens. Mac and cheese has no place to hide. A dry mac exposes you. A runny mac exposes you. A mac with no crust exposes you. The dish demands precision without allowing measurement, consistency without allowing a written recipe, and proof that you know what you are doing in a way that cannot be faked. A woman in Atlanta made the same baked mac and cheese for her family for 43 years. When she passed in 2016, her 4 daughters tried to recreate it for the first Thanksgiving without her. Each daughter remembered a different detail. One said she used 3 eggs. Another said 2. One insisted on Colby Jack. The others swore it was sharp cheddar only. They made 4 batches that day. None of them were right, not because the daughters could not cook, because the recipe was never in the ingredients. It was in their mother's hands. The way she tilted the pot when she poured the milk. The way she squeezed the cheese to test if she had grated enough. The way she pressed her palm flat against the oven door to check the temperature instead of reading the dial. Those were the measurements, and those measurements died with her. The next time someone calls macaroni and cheese a Southern dish, just smile, because you know where it really came from. This is a dish brought to America by James Hemings, who learned it in Paris and never received the credit. Transformed from a French sauce into an American casserole by black women who figured out how to make it feed 12 people survive an hour on the table, and taste better the next day. Perfected by grandmothers who cooked it so many times they could make it blindfolded and so precisely that their own daughters could not replicate it after they were gone. The blue box did not replace the dish. The blue box replaced the effort. The real one, the baked one, the one with the crust and the eggs and the sharp cheddar and the evaporated milk. That dish is still alive in every black kitchen, where a woman stands at the counter grating cheese by hand because she knows the pre-shedded bag does not melt the same way. Drop your grandmother's mac and cheese secret in the comments. Was it Colby Jack or sharp cheddar? Did she add mustard powder, or did she think mustard was a crime against the dish? And did anyone else's family have two aunties bring mac and cheese to the same reunion and watch the table go quiet while everybody figured out which pan to reach for first? Because this was never just a side dish. This was the test. And black women have been passing it for 200 years.